as the regional chairperson, together with the entire Central Regional Executives of our Noble Society, Critical Care Nurses Society Ghana, to warmly welcome you all to Cape Coast, that's Ogwa, the educational hub of the country, and then the ancient capital of former Gold Coast. Yes, so you are all warmly welcome. This is the first ever conference to be hosted outside of Greater Accra region. And we are excited to be the first region to host such a noble conference. This is another year of knowledge exchange and socialization as a society. And as we commence our 7th annual general meeting and scientific conference today, we couldn't have chosen any better theme than this: rising to the challenge, innovation, network of practice, and achievement in critical care nursing in Ghana and beyond. So let us look forward to an interesting and a very interactive discussion in the days ahead. I wish you all a successful conference and a happy stay in Cape Coast. Thank you very much.
To kindly give us the purpose of this gathering, because we have all these nurses with third eye who have left critically ill patients and they are here. Please justify why we are here.
So the reason why we are here is to hold our 7th annual general meeting and scientific conference. So we are here to do presentations, scientific presentations, equally as hold general meeting as critical care nurses. And you know, every year there's an avenue for learning, equally an avenue to know what is happening in CCN, the projections the executives have for the group, and all that bothers anyone in the CCN society. This is an opportunity, so just relax. Bring out all your questions, your suggestions, and everything that will improve the efficiency and outcome of CCN Society Ghana. So that's our reason why we are gathered here, to hold the 7th annual general meeting and scientific conference. Thank you very much.
And we needed to put together nurses in research and nurses in the clinical field in the same room and let them discuss. Can you guess how the discussion concluded? So what happened was that all the researches that we were supposed to apply and modify, happens that all this research have to be put in policy. Discussion that we've started here or we are contributing here will generate the needed eyes, or let's say the needed interest, so that moving forward we can all together, we can enlarge our horizon to receive the impactation. This person is no other person than Dr. James Kojo Pratt.
I'm very happy to be part of your program this morning. When I was tasked to talk about this topic, integrating research into practice, the role of network of practice, I said, this very knowledgeable people, what is it that I can share with you? But the one who invited me said, don't worry, you come and say something. It will be a refresher, if for nothing at all. So many of the things we'll talk about here are things you know already. But you know, the topic of research is so huge. Therefore, I'll try to touch on many parts of it, but it may not be as detailed as you may, but as we go on, the questions and other things will bring it. So we're talking about what research is, research and network of practice. Why should a nurse, critical care nurse like you, even engage in research? The research process itself, and then we'll look at a sample research proposal. The idea is that after this, you should be able to try something on your own with some assistance. So you see, in this fast-paced world, things are changing. Now we are talking about evidence-based medicine. And I'm happy with the introduction that the moderator even said that there's an attempt that you have to integrate research into what? Into practice. You'll notice that because we are so busy, it is very difficult for us to do it. I'm a clinician myself, so I know what you are talking about. So Monday to Sunday, we are with our patients. But does it pay to try to do something? Yes, it is, because you see, many of the things we apply in our work, some people researched and found it too. People have tried certain forms of certain procedures, and it has been found to be better than what we are doing. Say, oh, let's adopt this. If we don't get people to do it, we will be where we are. And so when clinicians like you and I engage in research, we are able to actually even do it better, because seriously, we have the data. And I'll share some few things with you. We have it, and people come from outside and come for it and used to publish. And sometimes they don't even acknowledge us. Meanwhile, we did the work. But how can we bring research into network of practice? Network of practice is a very good thing. I mean, simply, it refers to we sitting here, we are coming from different parts of the country, isn't it? And even though we have a lot of things in common, but we can share knowledge, we can share experiences, yes, we can even share resources. That is what network of practice is all about. So whilst you are here, try to network, know each other. And then one day you are there and you call your colleague, this is something I'm thinking about. Is it possible we can do something? I say, why not? Here, we have these resources, okay? Then why don't we? That is what network of practice is about. So through collaboration, critical care nurses can leverage these networks to effectively integrate research into their daily work. So what is research? Now we are starting the game proper. What is research? Research is not anything too big. All that we are saying is that systematically collect data, okay? Analyze the data, interpret what you are seeing, and then report on it. And the purpose is to solve a specific question or a problem. Hope you are getting it. So research simply means you gather some data. After gathering the data, analyze it. So what is this data about? That is the interpretation. And then you report it. That's what they call publication. But it should solve a problem. It should solve a problem. There are two main types of research. Glancing through your brochure, I saw that there will be an abstract presentation somewhere. I say that some of you have done something you are going to share. That is excellent. And we hope to see more of that. Research could be either basic or applied. Most of the time, the ones we do are basic. Basic simply means we want to discover something. There's some knowledge we want to gain, okay? That knowledge is usually a fundamental understanding of what is going on. Let me give an example. So you are in your area, you are working in the theater or in the intensive care unit or wherever you find yourself. And then you are there, then it occurs to you that it looks like many of the diabetics who come around here, when after surgery or something, their recovery is delayed compared to the others. This is something you have observed. How you observe it will come to that, but you have observed it. Then you are the one to say, so what could be the difference? Then you said, okay, we have the data there. We have all the admissions, the cases we see. Let me just go and look at the diabetics who come through and all that. So after going through, then you analyze it and then you realize that a lot of the people who have problems are working people. They are with this age category and all that. You have just discovered some basic data or basic knowledge. This is something you didn't know before. Now, applied research says that knowledge that you have discovered, you can now ask yourself and say, so what can I do to improve their outcomes? Okay, so since we found that most of them are working people and they are in this age group, is there something that we can change? Okay, let's change this and try it and see if it works. You see the difference? So one was a basic one, you didn't know anything. You went and you got some knowledge. In applied one, you are using that knowledge that you have obtained to address a specific problem. So usually the applied one is more practical. It's more practical, and it happens in the experiments and the other things that we will talk about later. So I also found this topic that you can use. It's just like the one I gave. This person wants to look at the molecular mechanisms of wound healing. So in diabetic patients, so this person might take some blood of the diabetic patients, take it to the lab, going to see whether there are some antibodies or some cytokines or something that is affecting the way the wounds heal. This example is what? A basic research. Now, after this has been done, you can now do an applied one. This time, you want to develop and evaluate a new wound care protocol. So you are going to use the knowledge you gain how wounds heal in this research. So that is applied research. So why are we bothering you or trying to encourage you to do research? So improve patient outcomes. If you are able to find something, so like the example that I gave, you're able to determine why your diabetic patients are not recovering faster, and you're able to integrate that into your practice, are you not going to improve patient outcomes? You are going to do that. Again, you are going to promote evidence-based practice. And you advance the nursing profession. I can see as part of your team that there's advancement in critical care nursing in Ghana and beyond. And when you do something like that and you publish it, everybody everywhere in the world will see, and people will start citing you. The day you go onto the net, and you sometimes when you are there and you are bored, you can go to Google and want to Google yourself, and you see citations, and you are happy. Yes, people are reading your work. In fact, if you try this, the first day your work will be accepted for publication, you will never forget that joy that comes to you. It is such a feeling. So me too, people are now going to see what I do and what is going to, and then people will be now referring to you that, so and so in the work that was done in this hospital even found that most diabetics are usually in this age and they don't recover well, and you are doing something. So it will help to address real-world clinical challenges and influence healthcare policy. These are all reasons why we need to. Okay, so now let's start something practical. So the research process. There are times when you tell people, can you do research? Say, yes, I wish I could, but how do I start? And so with time, because there is no assistance, before you know, the vim and everything goes down. So this is the research process. Remember, we said that research is a systematic process. Systematic means it's ordered, it's structured from one point to the other, and order is not chaotic, okay? So there is a structure. We are going to go through all this so that you see what we mean. So we have to identify and define a problem. Then you review literature. Then you formulate a hypothesis, okay? Then you choose your study design, your population, sample size. This morning we'll try to mention all of this just to refresh you. And then how to collect data, you process and analyze, and then you report. So how do you get your problem? Because there is no research that you can do well, effectively, that will make sense if it is not aimed at solving any problem. So sometimes when I'm reviewing people's work and I read a thing to the end, I ask myself, what is this work? What is the person trying to solve? What problem? Because if there's no problem, if it is not broken, why do you fix it? So you should identify a problem, okay? And the problem can happen just by observation. I mean, you can get one just by observation, like what I just gave. So as you are working, you will be noticing certain things. But you see, If I ask you right now that in your facility, what is the number one cause of death, okay, among clients who pass through the intensive care, wherever, you may say, I think it is, yes, it may be something you had, but you may not be too sure about because you have not found it. When you go and sit down and take that data and analyze, there is something you want to find. There's a problem. And the reason why you want to know that is because maybe you want to solve something that is becoming too much. There are times people come and say, there's too many people dying. Then I go to them and say, what is your evidence? Is it because you heard one or two people are dead? That's why you're saying too many people. By the time you analyze the data, you notice that there were over 1,000 people and one or two is dead. Is that why you say too many? Isn't it an exaggeration? Yes, because they don't use data, but the data is there. Okay, so patient outcomes can help you get topic. And sometimes you identify gaps in what you are doing. You are doing something and you notice that, this thing doesn't seem to work. Is there something that we can do? These are all how we identify problems. You can review current literature. Some of you are always on the net. You are reviewing works, other works that is being done in the area of critical care. You can read about them, and you see that so this one is not solved. This question is not answered. Can I? And then you can also consult your colleagues and even experts that there is something that I want to do, but can you help me? And all that. This is why we are all here. It's all part of the network of what? Of practice. You can also analyze institutional data. In fact, when I was starting my research career, that's how I started. Analyzing institutional data. And my first work was on cesarean section and their outcomes. And I must say that it is one of my most cited work. I was just there, I said, reading through, I can see that this area, yes, some people have done some work, but not in this environment. In the whole of Central Region, I've not seen any in. Then I went onto I saw some work, looked at it, saw some gaps, and then the data was there. I could analyze over 5 years of data, and most of your institutions is there. So institutional data is always available. Hospital or unit data, and then quality improvement initiatives, QI issues, they are all there. You can also look at some patient-centered care issues. You have noticed that many relatives, or clients, when they come, they want discharge against medical advice. Nowadays, this thing is increasing. Don't you think it's an area you can study? Yes, you can go in and find out what is causing them to do that. And even look at the kind of conditions that people usually ask that they should be allowed to go and all that. This, when you're able to do it, can improve the work that you are doing in your areas. So we are going to look at some ways. Sometimes you said, there should be a gap, okay, research gaps. People ask, what gap are we talking about? These are some of the gaps. Evidence gap. So you are reading, you notice that, somebody says this thing, we should do it this way. You read another one, it says we should do it this way. It's like there's confusion. What it means is that thing is inconclusive. You can add up to the debate. And one day somebody will do a meta-analysis, systematic study, and then your work will be there, and then will say that, majority of the people think it should be done this way. Before you know, that thing has ended up in policy and is being done. So that is how it is. So contradictory research findings. And then knowledge gap, desired research findings that do not exist. So usually when I want to do it and something comes to mind, I go to the net and type and see if that problem, what I think is a problem, is really a problem. Because sometimes what you think is a problem, by the time you go and find out, even next door, some people have done it and they have published it. Okay, then you see that this place, don't let me waste too. Let me find some other areas that is a little novel. And then you can also find gaps in the methods that were used. Somebody may do like this discharge against medical advice thing, you can see some work, somebody can use a questionnaire and go and give it to. But you can decide that, no, me, I don't use a questionnaire, I want to do interview because I want to understand the thing proper. So you see, different methods. It may be the same topic, but there's a gap in the methods because you have noticed that all the work that has been done had always been questionnaire. You want to go a little different. You have given a reason why you should do that topic, and every paper or journal will accept those things. And then it can be theories and even population gap. Sometimes it is even the scope. The scope. There was a time I was showing some people in the lecture like this how some other people elsewhere in the world have replicated the work that I have done, but in different words, different forms, and they have cited all that they will do is to change the population. They will say that, oh yes, this work was done among these people. However, we know that the context or the setting of these people actually changes how they think about this. So it justifies why the work has to be done in Cape Coast. The scope alone has given you a reason to replicate that work in that place. So that's the population gap. And when the problem comes to mind, immediately you get a problem, like I said, go and look for similar work that have been done. And then do a problem analysis diagram. This diagram is one of the most interesting and beneficial thing I've found in my career. Because once you do it, it gives you the objectives of what you should do and even how to design your questionnaire and all that. Look at this example. It's about high teenage pregnancy. So you have noticed that in your area, the girls are becoming pregnant too much. High teenage pregnancy. Maybe somebody has done some work and has published it, that when they did the survey, they found that there were so many teenage pregnancies. You decide that you also want to, this time you want to find out what is causing the leading to the teenage pregnancy. So you do this diagram. You have your topic in the middle, okay? And then you have all the possible causes as links in another spoke for you. So you see, so based on the readings that you do, you can say that early marriage is a possible cause, isn't it? So then you put it there. Poverty, lack of education, low contraceptive use, religion, peer pressure, broken homes, and all that. In fact, any of these causes can even be a paper on its own. But if you don't want it and you want to even use this as a research topic, what it means is that in your questionnaire, since you have identified these causes from the literature, you are going to ask questions about them so that you can write about them to find out that whether in your population, it is also true that lack of education is leading to what? High teenage pregnancy. So you go and do it and you notice that most of the girls have all finished university. Then in your discussion, you say that in what you did, it didn't support the idea that lack of education is leading to teenage pregnancy. Because, so you get, it's not like somebody have found you, so that is it. You can also find something new and you share with the world. So this is a good thing you can do. Another example is here. This person wanted to look at poor umbilical cord care practices. Okay, and after reading, found these things as possible causes. Let me just add that you have access to the slides. Don't worry, we'll give them to you so you can follow. Now, after this, take your time and do a good literature review. This literature review helps you to find out many of the things that people already have done, so that you can now hone your work so well and let it become very polished. So you notice that, oh, somebody did it somewhere, but how they did it, this is how they did it. You can even replicate what they do. That's why in good journals, I have a paper that some journals are helping me to. They keep bringing their questions. They describe the methods very well, because the idea is that if it is described very well, somebody somewhere can read it and replicate the study. So they want that thing to be very clear so that anybody who wasn't there whilst you are doing the work and read, okay, so he did it, he did this, he did. So you can read it, read the methods, and then see if you can replicate it. And that will give you the rationale for why it is crucial to conduct that study. So these are some sources of literature. There are a lot of databases. The minimum you can use is Google. Okay, so if you think you are going to start and you Google something, no problem. Some people say, oh, Google is not good for research. It's not true. It's also a search engine, except that it will give you a lot of chaff. Okay, so you must know how to sieve it. But if you want more precise ones, these are some of them that later you can use. Now, if you are doing a quantitative study, which will come to it, then you may have to have a hypothesis. Hypothesis simply means an educated guess on the relationship between a cause and an effect. Okay, so somebody can decide to find out what is the motivation why nurses will go into critical care. Okay, and then I can have hypothesis that, oh, it's because there is money in it. That is my hypothesis. Please, that is my hypothesis. And I will have to, in my research, try to either confirm it or what. So it means as I am preparing my questionnaire, because that is my hypothesis, I'll be asking questions that will help me, okay, to come to that conclusion or not. So after the whole thing, if I look at the trend and that will tell me, oh, so all that I was saying was false. That wasn't the case. Or I was what? Right. So hypothesis is good. It is actually based on existing knowledge. In fact, you can't form a hypothesis if you don't have any idea of it. So you see that problem analysis diagram. If you do it well, you can even have hypothesis from it, because you will have written so many things and you can pick one and say that I think that this high teenage pregnancy could be due to lack of education or due to poverty. That is your hypothesis. And then you can go and test it later on. Remember, every hypothesis should be measurable. Don't go and use something you cannot measure, like happiness. So how do you measure happiness? Then you are there, then you want to try to talk plenty. No. Take something that you can measure. Then after that, you come to methods. That's where most of the problems are. Methods is huge. It's a big part of it, and we'll see how we can quickly go through them. So under methods, we have the study design, study population, sample size, data collection, and all that. Because of time, we won't do everything, but at least we'll do the first three so that you can, the rest, data analysis and all that, it can take us the whole day. So we won't spend too much time there, but at least study design, study population, and sample size. Before we move on, you need to understand certain terms because they are very critical when it comes to research. Variable. Say, oh, what are the variables? In fact, there are people who use the term without understanding it. A variable simply means something that can be measured and can change. So in this room, if I'm doing research and I say that, what category of staff are you? That question is irrelevant. Because I know you are all what? Nurses and critical care nurses. It's not a variable here because it doesn't change. It's a constant. So there are two things. Either something is a variable or it's a what? It's a constant. So variables are things that can change. So age, if in the same room I bring age, is it a variable or a constant? Variable, because sex, the same thing. Height. But if I look through her and I see that, oh, Obia Seganini, and I bring nationality, it may not be a good variable because almost everybody will say, even though I'm not too sure about that. So I hope you understand the point. So that is one term you need to know. And then, even in variables, sometimes you come across, so what is the dependent variable? What is the independent variable? Simply what it means is that, you see, independent variables are the causes, and the dependent variables are the what? Effects. So, for instance, you want to find out whether fufu, if you eat a lot of fufu, it leads to you becoming fat, weight gain, isn't it? So the kind of food you are eating is the variable, and the effect is what? Weight gain. So in research, in a particular research, the dependent variable usually do not change, but the independent variable what? Changes. So in this example that I'm giving, type of food will become the what? Independent variable. And under one of it will be fufu, rice will be there, whatever will be there, because they are changing. But weight gain or weight will be what? Constant. And then later I'll go and find out which of these foods have been increasing people's weight. I hope it's fine. So let's, in some books or in some of the papers, you also see things like exposure and outcome. So exposure is the independent what? Variable, and the outcome is the what? Dependent. In the same way, intervention. Because if you are doing experiments, you put an intervention. You make an intervention. That intervention is also the independent what? Variable. And then the outcome of that intervention will be your dependent variable. When you see it, no confusion. And then sometimes you hear about validity, reliability, and all that. We will run through them very fast. But simply, validity refers to how the test that you are doing or the research method that you are doing, how it is able to measure or able to find out what you really want to find out, okay? So if you want to measure people's weight and you are using some criteria and all that, the extent to which those criteria and those things can measure the weight is the validity of it. And we have two types, internal and what? External. I want to start with external. External validity is the extent to which you can generalize your findings. So if you design your research in a way that even though you are working with critical nurses in Central Region, okay, but you can generalize your findings to critical nurses all over what? Ghana. It means that research has a very high external validity. But if you do it in such a way that it is only for critical care nurses in Central Region, then it means the internal validity is high. Every study with high internal validity means you are so sure about the cause and what? Effect, because you remove a lot of things that can affect your work. So usually lab work that are done in the lab have high internal validity because you have controlled the environment. You have removed what somebody will do, what this will do, and you make sure that everything is fine. And then we talk about reliability. Reliability simply means the consistency, okay, or stability of the measurement over time. So if I have a questionnaire and I give it to Madam to apply it in this population, the results, if I take it and give it to another person and he does the same thing, we should have similar what? Results. If that questionnaire is able to do that, then this questionnaire, what it means is that the questions there are ambiguous, okay? So it confuses people, so they are not sure. They choose this at this time, and then another time they choose another thing. So that is it. Now, bias. You do a work and they say there's a lot of bias. What does bias mean? In research, bias simply means systematic error that it is introduced into the work that affects both the validity and the what? Reliability. So if I come into this room and I want to introduce selection bias in my work, and maybe the work is about whether I performed, I want to find out whether my presentation was good or not. That is the work, the research I'm doing. But I have friends among you. So what I'll do is that I'll only go to my friends and go and ask them, what am I doing? Selection bias. Okay. So the sample that I'll find will not be representative of the what? Of the study population. I've biased the work. So some people do a lot of bias in their work, especially when it comes to polls. So exit polls and whatever polls in election. So if you go and then you want a particular population, you know where they are lineage, they are line, and then you go and say, oh, the whole Ghana says that. That's how it is. And it can happen in many areas. Response bias. Response bias usually happen from the people, the participants. So you want to ask them, when you are addressing the wound of a diabetic patient, what are the steps? Because they know that I'm a health professional and I should know, they will give you exactly what is in the books. But the thing they are doing, they won't tell you. So they give you what is called response bias. So all these things are there. Even publication bias, there are some journals, when you send some work to them, they look at the thing and they say, this one, negative results. Maybe you went to look for something and you didn't find it, and you are reporting it that you didn't find it. They don't like it. They want somebody who found something. Meanwhile, if you go for research, is it always that you find something? So that is called publication bias. Now let's talk about two other terms, primary and secondary data. Have we heard of these terms before? Yes. Well, there's a misconception here that I just want to mention. You see, primary and secondary data, the only difference among them is that one is modified. Simple. It's not about whether you are taking it or is somebody who is taking it. Sometimes, also secondary data is one that someone has taken. Yes, usually it's like that because it is some data somebody took somewhere, used it, and then you are now going to what? So by the time you go, the person has modified it. Sometimes there are no names, there are no dates, only aggregates that you find. Like the census. Do you know that you can go for the census data and use it? When you go, they will have worked on it and remove many things that they think is not what? Is not needed. That is secondary data. However, primary data is first-hand original data. So you see people going to use institutional data, okay? And then in their proposal, they say that I'll use secondary data. Say, Meanwhile, they are going to take admission and discharge books. Are you following? Admission and discharge books, and they are going to take the data directly from it. Is it primary or secondary? It's primary. Whether it's you who took it or it's somebody who took it, that data is original. Everything that you are looking for, including name of the people, are all what? In it. So it should be handled and used as such. If you want secondary data, usually you can find them in published work. People who have done some work, they have published some data, you can go and use it and also. So that's the difference between the two. Now, we come to study designs. How are you going to do the study? So a research study design is the framework or the set of methods that you want to use. There are many of them, but the three main ones we are going to talk about briefly: quantitative, qualitative, and what? Mixed methods. Which one is the quantitative? Quantitative are the ones that has to do with numbers, okay? So whatever data you are taking, you are converting all the data to what? Numbers. You are converting all the data to numbers. So you can decide to ask people about the type of food that they are eating. But you are categorizing them. And some people's questions are not structured. They are free for all questions. It is what the person says that the follow-up question will come. So that is qualitative. And then we have the mixed methods. When you can decide that, okay, I'll start with quantitative. However, when I get people who say this, I want to now select them and interview them to understand why what they said this. Or I want to do quantitative and qualitative power. After that, I bring the results what together to understand the research question well. That's when you are doing triangulation of methods and all that. So let me give some example. I've given a few, but let's see. So we want to research into cycling safety in Cape Coast. Okay, you want to see. People have been telling you that nowadays the cars are hitting the cyclists too much. So is that so? Hey, then what is happening? I'm a researcher. Let me go into it. So for quantitative, you can develop a questionnaire. And then you can go and then be asking people who are cyclists, so when you wear helmet, do you do this? When you ask, you want to find out. Or you can decide to go to the police people. Go and say, please, I'm conducting the race. Of course, after your ethical clearance and all that, you go to them and say, I want the database of all the accidents that have happened involving cyclists over the past 2 years, 3 years. Please, can you give it to me? Now you analyze and then see the trends. That is quantitative what? Data you are using, or analysis, quantitative method. Now, in qualitative, you now want to, this I want to understand, we want to go into the mind of the cyclist. So you design an interview guide. So remember, in quantitative, we use questionnaires, survey, but in qualitative, we use what? Interview guides. We don't call them questionnaires, we call them interview guides, because they are going to guide you in your interview. And they can be structured or unstructured or semi-structured, whatever it is. So when you take them, you can have a focus group discussion. Focus group is that when you have some people of interest that you want to, then you group them together, maybe 5, 6, 7. Then you interview them at the same time, and then they all share their ideas. Or you can do a one-on-one, we call it key informant interviews. Okay, key informant. So this person is an expert in that area. You go and pick the person, and then you interview the person. That's qualitative. Now, somebody will also say that, I want to use the mixed method for the same case. So this person will first go and analyze the statistics from the police, and then we'll look at it and draw conclusions. Say that, oh, okay, there are some dangerous areas. That's the places where people are most hate. Okay, I want to understand more. So let me go and look for the cyclists and ask them why they even go to that place. And when they go, what is it that they do there that makes them prone to the what? Accident. You see that by the time you finish with the mixed methods, your work will be better than the person who did only quantitative and the one who did only qualitative. The only thing is that mixed methods is difficult because you have to do everything and come and add all together. Now, let's some few ideas about, I don't know if you are familiar with a slide like this. It is giving us the common research designs for quantitative, please, for quantitative. And I must say that most of the work that we do are all quantitative. Many people do not do qualitative. When you ask, they say that qualitative is more difficult. What makes qualitative difficult is the analysis. Because in qualitative, you have to record the interviews. When you finish, you have to go and sit down, play it back, and write it. Everything that you heard, what we call transcribing. Write it word for word. And then there are some softwares. You can use the software to tell you what was coming up more often. And sometimes you have to even go back and ask more questions. Go back to the people and go and ask more questions until you get to a point that we call data saturation. It means you don't have any more questions to ask the people. So people really don't like it. After a questionnaire, within a few minutes, I can finish the whole of this group. Go and sit down and then start analyzing it. Now, a quantitative study could either be descriptive or analytical. Descriptive or analytical. So in the descriptive simply means that work you are just describing things. Statistics is not going to be much of a problem. While statistics are frequencies, percentage, proportion, those things. The rest is brofo. You just describe. So we were at the conference, and then there were so and so people who came from the Volta region, and when they came, they were neatly dressed, and this and this. It's just about describing what you saw. And these are the common study designs, case reports. And so in our profession, we see a lot of cases. So you can decide to write on one rare case that you have seen in your. So one day you are there, and then they said there's a patient to be appendix. Meanwhile, when they were looking for the appendix, they didn't find it. And then they ended up seeing the appendix behind the spleen. And then it is rare, isn't it? People will want to read about certain things. when you do one of such report, it is called a case report. If you do a series of such appendix ones, plenty, you write them together to form a trend. You are doing case series, okay? And then you can also do your cross-sectional studies, which can also be purely descriptive. You can do a cross-sectional study without doing a lot of analysis. You can just describe. For instance, if I bring a questionnaire here and take all that data and I just do frequencies and do it, I'm doing a descriptive cross-sectional study. Now, analytical, it can either be observational or experimental. When you say observational, you, the researcher, you don't add anything to the knowledge or whatever is being, you just go in there and then whatever is there, you pick it out. So I come here and then let's say, okay, let me ask you this question. Now I think I should ask just one question. If I come here and take all of your blood samples for your HB, am I doing observational study or experimental? Okay. So, understand, so it tells me that I need to now explain what experimental is. Experimental means you are making an intervention. You see, the blood sample that I'm taking, I'm going to check HB. Yes, I'll take it to the lab, but taking it to the lab doesn't make it an experiment. I could have also brought a HemoQ, that small machine here, and check it. I am only finding out your HBs as you are sitting here, without giving you any food to eat, without giving anything. But if I came and I decided that, okay, let me see if this food that somebody has brought here can influence your HB. So today is day 1, okay? So I take all your HBs. Then I tell them that they should feed you with that food. I am making an intervention. Are you getting the intervention? What is the intervention? What is the intervention?
Something you have done and you want an output. So
Yes,
the
so in this
outcome
case, what intervention am I doing?
you are increasing the HB. The food that you take will help.
What is the intervention?
The feeding.
The food. Please, are you getting it? The food is the what? Intervention. You are doing something and you want to see if that is going to change the variable that you are looking for. So in this case, the food that I'm giving is the independent variable, okay? And the HB that I want to, so it's cause and effect, isn't it? So the HB will be the what? The dependent or the outcome. Please, are you getting it? So experiments are, if you are not putting in any intervention, you are not conducting what? An experiment. Let's get that one straight. So in our research, we hardly conduct experiments. In fact, since I started, I've not conducted any experiment. Because I have not done any work that I have put in an intervention, and I've gone to check whether the intervention had yielded any results. Please, are you getting it? So if somebody takes you to the lab, please, he's not doing an experiment. It's just an observational study. He's just observing what is there as we speak, okay? And so when it gets to observational studies, we have 3 of them. Common ones, cross-sectional, case control, and what? Cohort studies. So let's see. So this one I've explained. Let's move on. Okay, so before we go to the details, there's something called hierarchy of evidence. You may see them as you. So hierarchy of evidence says that if you are talking about evidence to use, expert opinion is the last one. So if you come and say that when Dr. Pratt came, he said that now when we are doing suturing, instead of using this thing, we should use nylon. And what is on what basis did he say that? If he said that based on his own experience and all that, it's an expert opinion. It is at the last bit of evidence. Now, case reports, okay, the one that you have seen and then you have documented is rated higher than expert opinions. And then case control, we'll talk about case control. Case control 2 is rated higher than case reports. Cohorts on top of case control. Randomized control trials. the RCT. And that is experiments. You see, experiments give evidence, isn't it? Because if I give you the food and I check 3 days time and your HB has, can't I confidently say that this food increases HB? That is it. But if I come and ask you, do you eat this food? And you say yes, okay, and then I check your HB, okay, and I try to link it, that will be a cross-sectional study. You are just answering the questionnaire. Do you eat this food? Yes, it can be true or cannot be true. Then I'll go and do something, and then based on my cross-sectional study, I said, oh, I think this food increased because many of the people who said they eat this food, when I checked their HB, it may not be the case. It may be something else that is causing their HB. But because I did a cross-sectional study, the relationship between cause and effect is low. That is why cross-sectional studies are even low there. They are not things you have because they don't really, you can't be sure about the cause and effect from cross-sectional studies. You can only guess and say, so when we are reporting cross-sectional studies, we say that it could probably be due to this, because you cannot be sure. But if it was an experiment, then it increases the cause and effect. But that's why RCT is on top. And then systematic review. Systematic review is at the highest because it is accumulation of, so somebody sits down and then goes to the literature and find out so many works that have been done. And then they use some technique to sieve out the data. And because that work is better than a single work. That is why it is sitting on top. Okay, so now what is a case report or a case series? I think I mentioned that earlier. A cross-sectional study is a snapshot, okay? You go into a community or a population, you ask a question. In fact, whatever you are looking for, whatever they tell you or whatever you find, that is what you have. So you pick it and you come out of the place. You don't intervene in any way. You just ask questions, get your answer, and you come. So it is called a snapshot. It's like you have taken a picture. Whatever you see, that is it. Snapshot. So we usually do that for prevalence studies. You want to find out how many people have this condition, how many people have this. So that is cross-sectional studies. Because of our time, I want to go a little fast. And then case control. This one, sometimes people confuse it a lot with cohort study. Case control, in case control, what you do is that you go and look for cases. So let's say I'm looking for people with breast cancer. Are you getting it? So when I find the people with breast cancer, now I go into their history and find out what is it that they have been exposed to in the past. So in case control, you always start with the what? With the case. And the case is those with the condition you are looking for. That is case control. So you go back in time to look for risk factors, possible risk factors. So that is one. And then you have a control group. That is those who do not have the condition you are looking for. So maybe in this class, you can ask for people who are hypertensive. And then people who are not hypertensive. So those who have the case, have the condition are your cases. So you go back in time to find out, so what is it that you ask the two groups same questions. You don't ask them different questions. Are you getting it? Because you have the risk factors. And you want to see whether the risk factors are more common in those with the cases or they are also in the what? In the control group. Before you can say that, oh, well, this risk factor is more likely to be causing the case because more of the people who have the cases had this risk factor compared to the control group. That's how it is. With cohort, so this is how it looks like. So you have the cases. So always in case control, there should be how many groups? 2. One group is the what? Case, another group, the control. Then you go back and go and find out for each of the risk factor. So if it is breast cancer, you want to find out, assuming your risk factor is use of contraceptives. So each of them, you want to find out whether they were exposed or what? Unexposed. So contraceptive, were you taking it? He said, yes, I was taking it. That's for the case. You come to the control. Were you taking contraceptives? He said, yes. In fact, when you do case control, it is able to tell you that sometimes some of the things we thought we are linking it to some condition. It is not true, because sometimes you do it and between the two groups, the risk factor is everybody is exposed to the thing. Meanwhile, some people have the disease, some people don't have the disease. That's the thing about case control. Now, with cohorts, it is the other way of case control. Cohorts, you start with the people who have the exposure. So if it is contraceptive use, you start with people who are on contraceptive use, and then you follow them over time. So cohort is more difficult to do, because you have to follow the people. So maybe every year you go to them and go and find, are you fine? Are you this? You want to check whether they have developed the what? The case. Once somebody develops the case, the person now is taken out of the cohort. Then you follow her over an agreed period of what? Of time. Then you can see that, okay, when I followed people who were on contraceptives for 10 years, half of them developed breast cancer. Are you getting the difference? And once you were following, it is a cohort what? Study. But if it were case control, you have started with the people with the what? Breast cancer. Then you have gone to find out whether they took contraceptives or not in the past. Okay. And the same way, cohort 2, there is a control group. Okay. So we have the people who are not taking contraceptives as your main group, and those who are taking what? Those who are taking contraceptives, that's the exposed group, and then those who are not taking. And you follow these two groups all over the same period of what? Time. So if at the end of the time, let's say 10 years, and those who are taking contraceptives, 5 have developed breast cancer, and those who are not taking, also 5 have developed breast cancer. What is your conclusion? Is contraceptive increasing breast cancer? So that is what research is all about. Okay. Now, after you have decided on which of the things you want to do, most of us will do cross-sectional study, which is the commonest thing, and I encourage you to start with that. Don't go and start with case control or whatever you do. You have more this cross-sectional, simple. So after you have done that, now you ask yourself, which people do I want to study? And that is where inclusion and exclusion criteria come. I'm sure we all know about this. We can jump it, isn't it? Okay. So should I ask somebody what it is? So inclusion criteria simply means the people you want to bring to be part of the study. Now what about exclusion? Exclusion criteria is not the opposite of inclusion criteria. Please take this from me. Many people make this mistake, even including professors. It's not the opposite. You see people saying that I am going to recruit girls from 10 years to 20 years, okay, for my study. Exclusion criteria, I will exclude people below and above. No. Once the person does not qualify per your inclusion criteria, you cannot exclude the person. So the people we are going to exclude should be people who are between the 10 years and the what? 20 years, but have some other conditions that you do not want them to be part of the study. Okay, so if what we are going to do has to do with we want to know their knowledge about malaria or something, and you can say that, oh, I will exclude those ladies, anybody whose parents are health workers, and your justification is that they may be biased, they may have the knowledge already. No, that is you. It's your justification. Nobody can fault you. The reviewer can say that your justification is not, you should still let them be part, but that is you. But I hope you get the difference. Otherwise, you go and say, we are going to do a study among pregnant women, and so we will exclude all non-pregnant women. It is not true. It's just like saying you do a study in women, but it means you exclude all the men. No, it's just the same thing. Which doesn't make sense, isn't it? If you are doing women, why are you excluding men? So they are not opposites. They are not opposites. They are the very reasons why those who qualify will not be included. So what is sampling? Even before sampling, let's talk about population. So population simply means that specific group of people that you want to watch, you want to study. And sometimes when you read some book, they have targets, population, some say steady population. So the difference is just simple. Target is the whole group of people that you wish to generalize your things to. So let's say my target population are critical care nurses all over Ghana. Okay. However, my steady population are those who are accessible to me. So those who attended the conference, they are now my what? Steady population, because those are those accessible to me. Those who didn't come, I can't have access to them. Even though my finance, I will generalize it to where I affect them. So that's the difference. And sampling means you are taking a bit of the what? Of the population, the steady. You can't do everybody. Maybe you think the population is too big and you want to do everybody, you need a lot of money, there's no time. So you want to take a bit of them. Now there are many sampling methods. We have probability sampling methods and what? Non-probability ones. Please, sometimes we confuse them. Probability ones are the ones that you want to give everybody a fine opportunity, an equal opportunity to be part of it. So in this class, if I want to do a probability, I can decide that I want to do something like a simple random sampling. And in one class, I asked somebody, so simple random sampling, in this class, how will you do it? Says that, so when I meet you, so I come and stand here, then I decide, okay, take one. It's not random sampling, no. It is not what you are doing, it's more of convenience sampling. In fact, if I ask you, so on what basis were you giving 1, 1, 1, 1? What do you say? Is it because the people were attracted to you, or what? You like the way they were sitting, or what? So please, that is not random sampling. No. Random sampling is when you do the things systematically. So there are different ways. So if you look at the probabilities, you have simple random sampling. So if I want to do simple random sampling in this class, what I have to do is to go to the organizers, take all of you your list, the names, okay, and maybe decide to do balloting. Okay, and if you do that, you allow everybody an equal opportunity to be what? Recruited. Or do something called systematic sampling technique and all that. So many of them stratified. But if you don't want to do that and want to do the non-probability, then you can do the convenience one. Convenience is when you meet the person and the person is accessible, is available. Oh, can you do one of this for me? They all have their advantages and what? Disadvantages. But if you can do probability because that is what is more scientific. And then there's snowball. You know snowballing. When I meet you, you use that for rare population, people who you are difficult to find, like smokers. Okay, Ghana here, they are a little rare. Let's say prostitution. So you meet one, and then so can you? I want to talk to your other colleague. Can you direct me to another one? Then it is snowballing. You go, I want to talk to another one. Then they are showing you. That is snowballing. And then purposive is when you select people based on their expertise and something. So you look for them. So you come here and you said you want to talk to the chairperson of the group in Central Region. You are purposefully looking for that person. If you come and it's not here, you leave until you find a person. By convenience, when I come and anybody who is available, I do what? I give it to the person. So sample size, how do we calculate it? In fact, there are many techniques. These are common ones that we use for cross-sectional studies, okay? Please, don't do a sample size and say, in this work, I will people. You just write it like that and leave. It's not allowed. You must justify why you are using what? 50. So, in most cases, like if you are using this class, it is better to use the second one. The second one, this one. Your main formula for finite population. Finite means you know the number. You know, so you are 100, you are 200, and you want to take some. So N, that capital N there will be the total number. Okay, the Y is always 0.05. And then you do the calculation straight. You get a number that you can use, which is accepted. If you don't know the number, the whole Cape Coast, diabetics, okay, and you want to do it, then please do this one. Use the second one. This first one, okay, that is the Cochrane's formula. When you read about it, you see how it is used. But please don't just say, I want to use 100 and just as if you don't care about anybody, then you just say that and go. The people will ask you why, what led to your choice of 100. Okay, so let's take note of that one. Okay, so now data collection. You can use many things that we have mentioned. Surveys, experiments, observation. Okay, and then for qualitative, I think I've mentioned some already. Interviews, focus groups, ethnography. Ethnography, sometimes it's very interesting when people go to live in some communities so that they get to know how the people live, all in the name of research. People can do things, but Africans don't like doing this kind of research. Literature review, you can survey, and then you can also find a lot of things. So now, a practical one, and then we are done. So, this is a topic I want to do, and you are going to help me do it. My topic is discharge against medical advice among patients, prevalence, contributing factors, and health outcomes. Maybe at Cape Coast or wherever. So this is the topic. I said that when you think about a thing, the topic, you must always read about, isn't it? And then do your problem analysis and blah, blah, blah. So all this have been done. So now with that literature that I found, I can develop a background, what we call the introduction. Okay? When you do the introduction, now you can come to the problem statement. Problem statement. So this is my problem statement. Patients who live against medical advice face heightened risk, including worsening of their condition, increased morbidity, and even mortality. Please, the priority there is just, it's not real, okay. Despite the global recognition of DAMA as a critical issue, there remains limited comprehensive research. Are you seeing the problem I'm trying to bring out, that the reason why I'm doing the thing? So there remains limited comprehensive research on its prevalence, contributing factors, and long-term consequences in healthcare settings in the central region of Ghana. I've made a justification for doing this study, because I'm telling everyone that even though the thing is so important, but there are no literature on it. People don't understand why, they don't know why patients will want to live. So I've made a case. So since after making the case, then you go to significance of the study. How important is this study going to help us? And then you give all that. This study will provide valuable insights into the factors contributing to DAMA and associated risks. The findings will be critical in developing blah, 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 like that. Then the second point, this research aims to investigate the frequency. So when you are finishing that part, you now bring your aim and a bit of your objectives into it. So this research aims to investigate the frequency of DAMA, explore its underlying causes on patient care at the University of Cape Coast Hospital, Ghana. Now you come to research objectives, and you get these research objectives if you did the problem analysis very well. So the things that contribute to it will all come in here. So what do I want to do in this research? I want to determine the prevalence of DAMA among hospitalized patients. That is something I want to do. Remember, your objectives should be SMART. You know what SMART is? It should be specific. It should be measurable. It should be what? Enable. Don't go and do something that you are there. Somebody else. So how are you? I usually ask a lot of the researchers that question when I'm reviewing it. How will you achieve your objective too? I just ask, how will you achieve your? Because sometimes you see the objective and say this objective, you can't measure anything to answer it. And they will write back and say, oh, they have reviewed it and it was too vague and all that. So all these are just samples, okay, because of the time you go. And then now I have my hypothesis, okay, I put in my hypothesis. Remember, hypothesis, there are two. We have the null hypothesis and the alternative. The null is the one that says that there's no difference. What you are doing, they are all the same. No one is better than the other. And then the alternative is what you actually think it is. And then you... So now I come to the methodology. So the study design. I say that this research will use a cross-sectional observational study design. You know what it is now. The setting, you talk about it. It will be conducted in a tertiary care hospital and all that, you talk about it. The population, study population, who are we going to study? We are going to study discharged patients from the hospital, those who were discharged against what? Medical advice. And then the sample size. Our sample size of 200 patients, but I said it should be what? Calculated. Calculate your sample size. So if you want to know if it is discharged against medical advice, you want to know, then it means you must go first do feasibility study in the area you are going to do the thing and find out the number of what? Those who have been discharged. Just recently, a student came to me, he was coming to do a similar work, and I asked her, do you know the number of patients who are discharged against medical advice in a year in this hospital? He said, oh, I'm now coming to. I said, you have gone for your thing to be approved to this stage. So if you go and it's 0, what will you do? Or you go and it's 1. Are you getting my point? So before you get to this stage, you must find out whether the data you are even going to look for is what? Is there. Don't assume, because sometimes you go and it is not there. And you have wasted all your time. And then you can decide to use census sampling. I like using that. If you notice that your sample size or the population you are going to study is few, so this discharge against medical advice, when you went to find out there are only 20 of them in the year or in the 2 years. Census means you are recruiting all those who are eligible. You are not going to sample. You are using the entire what? Population. So if I come here and I said I want to do census sampling, it means everybody I will approach and say, will you want to be part of my study? Will you want to be? I'm not going to select. I will approach everybody and give everybody the opportunity. Census doesn't mean you get everybody to partake because it is not compulsory. Research is not what? Compulsory. That's why in exclusion criteria, when I see people have written, I will exclude those who do not consent. I said that this one is an obvious thing. If the person doesn't consent, what else will you do? You force the person to be part of it. It's a given. You don't have to state this. So that is it. Okay. And then with the data collection, you say, oh, I'll use medical records. Okay. That are there. So I'll do a medical records review. And the instrument, the tool that I'll use to take the data is called data abstraction form. Okay, data abstraction, because I'm going to use it to abstract the data. So in that data abstraction form, you have how the kind of data you want. So maybe you want age, you want sex, you want the reason why the person or the indication or the diagnosis, you want this, you put all that on a form. You call it a what? Data abstraction form. So that when they open the database for you, you know what you are looking for. It's not there that you are going to think, should I take this? Should I take? You have already prepared for it. So, and then you analyze. In this case, I say I'll analyze using SPSS. I'll use descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics, we are talking about frequency, percentages to maybe determine the prevalence of DAMA. And then I also use inferential statistics. So it means even though I'm going to do a cross-sectional study, I am doing analytical what? Cross-sectional study, because I am bringing in logistic regression and all those things. And then after that, you do ethical consideration. It's very important in research. Please, when you are going to use anybody, ask their what? Permission, their consent. If you are going to use data that is already taken, it may be primary or secondary, but write to a competent ethical review board and take what? Permission. Nowadays, many of the journals that have come, they will insist that they want to see the approval from the ethical board before they will even look at your paper. So you can give some expected outcomes, okay, what you expect from it. And then after that, you have a work plan and a what? And a budget, okay. And then now, finally, how will all this come into our network of practice? Like I said, when we are able to network well, you have people who have interests like us, who want to do something. You can always link up. And it takes somebody to take the lead and say that, let's do this. Let's try something. And then before you know it, you are what? You are going. And we, all of us will be there to support you. I have my email address and my number on this slide at the end of it. If you need any help, just feel free. We will give you the push that you need. Before you know, you are flying. And then we can leave you alone to do what you want to do. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very, very much for a whole semester's course.
A beautiful presentation. In fact, a whole semester's course has been taught here free of charge. God bless you. So I have some few questions. The number one is the experimental study. So if you are conducting an experimental study, you have a control. Then you want to put in an intervention of HB differently at home. How do you take care of those confounders? And the second question is the DAMA. It's a very interesting topic. I wish we can do it in our ICUs. So with regards to discharging against medical advice, those of us in the acute care areas, or like typically ICU, where the patients are sedated, they are intubated, and they can't, at that point, you can't even determine the lucid interval. They can't make any meaningful decision. So it's the family members that speak on their behalf. So they act as attorneys. How do you, if you want to conduct such a research, are you going to do it with the family relations? I don't know where to, who will be your population? I want to get it clear because I want to conduct one. Because, I'm saying this because IC is very expensive. They come there and it's like they use all their monies for labs, medications. 1 week, 2 weeks, they tell you that discharge my patient for me, we want to go. But that patient is unconscious. So it's the spouse or the family members who are speaking on their behalf. Or, the patient doesn't even want to go. So you want to really know who that population is going to be in your study. Then the last one is research limitation. I have a problem with that. If you are conducting a research and you know the limitation, why do you even go to conduct the research in the first place? You should deal with those limitations before you go into the research. So when you read students' research and it's like they are interested in the limitation, a whole page on limitation, you should have taken care of those limitations before conducting your research. So when it comes to research limitation, how best do you go about it? Thank you very much.
Good, very intelligent questions. So with the confounders, yes, usually what is done is that you are performing the experiment and you want to reduce the confounders to the barest minimum. So you actually will have to do that right from the time you are selecting or you are recruiting your people. In fact, it is part of the criteria for consent. So you tell the pregnant woman or whoever is going to put the intervention on that you are in a study. You see, it is only when you hide it from them and they don't know whether they are in a study or something that you are just secretly, come next week and let me take your HB. That's why when he goes and is eating all the things, he doesn't know about it. But you let them be aware that we are doing a study. This is all about the ethics of the work. Let them know. Once they know, then you tell them that as part of being this study, what we want you to do is that please, this and this and this and this, don't don't eat. It will affect the results. So we want you to only take this blood tonic. The ones that you are taking, please don't take them. And then, you see, because you are doing a control group, you also do not want to restrict them too much. Otherwise, your external validity will be affected. So you want to allow them to live normally as much as what possible, because that is their natural setting. So that the control group will also live normally as possible. So that the only difference between the two groups will be your what? Intervention. I hope you get it. Now the other one is who is the population in Dama. You see, this one, it is you who decides who your population is. So you, from your literature review, as you are writing a thing, once the person who is reading knows exactly who is going to be your population, because you'll be talking about the fact that, oh, these people are unconscious and this, and usually it's relatives who take. Me, if I read that and I come to your methodology and you tell me I will be recruiting 10 patients and 40, I'll just put a query there. That you have just described the fact that these people are usually unconscious, and it is their durable power of attorneys who take the decisions for them. So they are the people who you have to go and recruit and find out what influences their decision taking, because they are the ones who are taking the decision, not the patients. And then research limitations. You see, research limitation is different from the delimitations. The limitations are usually as a result of your study design, which usually you may not be able to do much. Some study designs, like the cross-sectional study, in fact, because of time, we didn't go to, but all of the study designs have their inherent limitations. Some of them, the biases, you can do something about them, like the selection bias. You can do some by making sure that you really do your sampling very well, use a probability sampling. So if somebody tells me, oh, one of the limitations in this study is bias, selection bias, that one you should be able to do something about it. So I expect that you will handle that and you will not write it. But there will be things like people will give you socially desirable responses. No matter what you do, you will get them. You understand? No matter, you will get people giving you responses that you want to hear. Not everybody will be honest with you. You see, and the fact that it's a cross-sectional, so you cannot generalize it to other, but the delimitations are your own limitation that you have brought onto the study by saying that you want to restrict the study to this room, usually about the scope, okay, and even about the kind of questions you are asking. You limit it to certain, because you can't ask everybody every type of questions. There are times that I've seen people ask some questions and write in the comments that you can't ask this question. There was a time a student was going to ask some adult there about their sexual life. And I saw that and I said, this one is not, should not be allowed. Okay. Meanwhile, those questions were going to actually make the points better. But you see, ethically and morally, a young lady cannot go and stand in front of an adult and be asking how many times in a week do you sleep with your wife and all that. So that becomes a limitation to the work, which is a good one, of course. That's why RIBs are there. I actually work for the RIB at UCC. So we do a lot of these things. We want to protect the public so that people will not come and ask unnecessary questions. So that will be a limitation. So not all limitations can actually be addressed. Some are inherent in the study design, and that is how it is. But those that are from you, you should be able to look at them before you present them and write a whole page that these are the problems. Even when you are doing that, sometimes when you are even writing that there's a limitation, we add that, but this limitation has been addressed by trying to increase the sample size and making sure that the data taken from representative. You see, you have to write something to let the person know that you are aware of that limitation. So you also try to do something to limit it to the barest minimum. Thank you for those questions.
I want to find out from you personally, in your experience through publications, how you can deal with publication rejections practically, because it can be very depressing sometimes. Thank you.
If you are in the business, you know that it's normal. So for some of us, me personally, I take it as a way to improve the work. I take it because I sometimes target some caliber of papers. So those I don't like are those who just say declined, they won't say anything. But those who give you reason why they won't take it is good. At least they give you an idea. You go back and look at the work, see that, oh, okay, maybe they think that the work is so common. So then there isn't anything special about yours. Is there something that you can do? Maybe the method. Why don't I change the method and see? But never get depressed, because some of my most frequent cited works was rejected like thrice. But perseverance, and then you've got a very good journal who told us, oh wow, this one we want to do it. So it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Don't get worried at all. Usually when they reject it like that, for the first 1 week, don't even read it. Just put it, just put it, get over it. Then you go and open the mail. And then this time when you read it the second time, it doesn't hurt like the first one. And then you will now look at it and say, okay, is there something I can do? And share it also with people who are experienced, okay? Ask them, what is it that we can do about it? And usually, in fact, I believe no work is so bad to be, but you see, journals have their own areas that it may not be a bad work, but it is not they don't like those kind of, some people, when you give them qualitative work, no matter how good it is, they won't publish it. Some people too, they won't, so don't worry too much. There are hundreds of them. When it's not, you try others, and you one day you get one who accepts it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.